Alrighty, everyone. Well, welcome to the inaugural Rewildology Book Club. So happy to have everybody here. Couldn't believe it that we have officially launched this book club. And I'm so glad that all of you are also here. So I'll introduce myself. I'm Brooke. I am the creator of Rewildology, which launched in 2021. And ever since then, the show has released over 200 episodes, over 40 countries, have interviewed a ton of people around the world, which is pretty crazy. And Dr. Gladys was one of my former guests. And I figured it was just perfect that we would have her as a featured guest for this. So the backstory of the book club, it was a multitude of things. I've always wanted to create a community around rewildology, but I didn't quite have the thing. Like, what is it that we could all come together around and do together, especially with this being a global community? I don't want to just be here. I don't want to just be here. What can we all do together? And then the idea with how many authors have been on the show, and then like Katie recently coming on and helping with rewildology as well. We just had this idea. I was like, I've always thought about this book club. And then Katie has been in multiple book clubs. I will be a complete honest newbie that I actually have never been in a book club. Part of the reason why is like, I'm not the person to lead this because I'm not that knowledgeable in this. I've done lots of other things, but not the book club. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted this face-to-face interactions with anyone who didn't want to have their camera on, and talk and chat and bring conservation stories to all of us from these amazing people that I've had the amazing pleasure of connecting with directly. And now I, through my resources, can share them with all of you. And on that, we actually just had a massive surprise. So originally, Dr. Gladys had recorded a video answering your guys' questions that you had sent in. She just messaged that she's going to join us. So she will be here. I told her to wait until about 10 minutes after the introduction, and she will be joining. So then we will actually have the opportunity to talk with her directly, which is really exciting. Just want to let you all know that. Very exciting news. So me and Katie were just scrambling a lot. We're like, ah, she's coming. Like, okay, this changes everything. But very exciting. She's a sweet, wonderful human, as I'm sure you gathered from her book. But with that, I will turn it to Katie to introduce herself and tell a little bit more about her backstory. And then I'll just give a quick guidelines and expectations. And then hopefully at that point, Gladys will be with us. But Katie, take it.
Awesome. Thanks, Brooke. So of course, I'm Katie. I am a conservation leader, a project manager, and a science communicator. And I am the Rewildology Book Club moderator. So I've been the one that you've been hearing from if you've been in the Goodreads group. And I've been a longtime fan of reading and being in many book clubs. By day, I serve as the Chief Operations Officer at Penguins International. So I get to lead global efforts on protecting penguin species, which is fun. But of course, I love all animals just like Brooke. So being able to dive into a story about gorillas is really exciting. So I'm just really thrilled to kick off this book club with you all so that we can really dive in to understanding these different aspects of conservation. And Dr. Gladys Kalema-Zikusoka, her story is just so incredible. So as you all have read, so I want you all to maybe take like a minute or two to jot down a couple of questions so that you are ready to ask those. If you already have those written down, great. But yeah, we'll probably give you a chance to just ask her those questions directly. So if you want to write the question in the chat, you can indicate if you want to ask that question or if you want us to ask the question. So maybe do the hand raise emoji if you want to ask it yourself. If you want us to ask it, put it in the chat. So that way Brooke and I can then ask it if maybe you're a little bit shy or you can't turn on your camera. So that'll be a great way for us to get those questions to her while she joins us. And I know, Brooke, we're also hoping to do a little selfie with everybody to kind of showcase like, hey, book club is happening. So if you guys are okay with it and up for it, we would love for you to hold up your book if you have it nearby and smile, and then we can take like a group screenshot. And Brooke, would you like to do that at the beginning or at the end once we've got Gladys with us?
Maybe once Gladys is here.
Perfect. So if you also need a minute to grab your book, you can turn off your camera really quick and go grab it for our group photo. But yeah, that's me, and those are how we're going to do the questions for her. I'm going to pass it back to Brooke for any other of our rules and expectation setting.
Yeah, so the rules are pretty straightforward. They were the same ones that if you read it on Goodreads. So this is an open discussion platform. So with that, oh, hi, Michelle, you popped on. Just kindness is really important, just not, we could have open discussion about a lot of things, but just always keeping in mind that people are coming with the best intent and treating them that way. Disrespectful behavior is not allowed. So any vulgar things or going after somebody, like, again, we welcome open discussion and maybe challenging some ideas, but just not being an a-hole about it. It'd be great if we stick to the topic and not go off on crazy tangents. I mean, of course, if we go down interesting rabbit holes, that's perfectly fine, but not, spinning off in some wild direction. That would be great. And then with the political climate being as it is right now, we just ask that we not go into those topics. Like, that's one thing that I've always wanted with Rewildology, is to be a place of welcoming and acceptance of everybody, no matter your belief. So let's just not get into that right now. Things are a little wild and crazy. Just a reminder that this is recorded. So, I mean, you all heard me record, but reminder that this is recorded so that we can also share it with the rest of the members who aren't present. And like, please participate. We really want you to join and participate. Like, if we were somewhere, I would want all of us to have like a glass of wine or a coffee and like chat. Like, this is meant to be fun and engaging for all of us, like a big group of awesome conservation nerds all coming together to chat about these great books. So please participate. You are just as much of a member as me and Katie. So please participate. Oh, she is here. She's here. Let's pop on in, the woman of the hour. And she's coming in. And that, my last thing, I was just going to ask if anyone had any questions about anything before we started. Hopefully Gladys will we'll see her soon. But does anyone have any questions? Nope, nada. All right. Well, Katie, I will pass it to you to help lead the discussion. And hi, Dr. Gladys, you're here. Oh, you're muted, dear.
Hi, how are you?
Oh, we are so good. We are so thank you and happy to be. It's like 2 a.m. your side. Like, I cannot believe you're here. But we are very, very grateful to have you. So again, go ahead.
Excited to be here. And my husband has also joined.
Hi, Lawrence.
Hey, guys.
He's going in another room.
Let's get the show on the road.
Yes. Welcome in, Lawrence. So good to see both of you. Well, great. So I will, so Dr. Gladys, we just did some opening introductions where we just went over a little bit of backstory about the book club. We went over just some of the rules and expectations, and I was just turning it over to Katie to help start and lead the discussion. And yeah, if anybody has any questions, we'll go from there. But Katie, you take it on.
Awesome. Hi, Gladys. It's so nice to virtually meet you and, of course, read your incredible life story. What an amazing adventure your life has been, and all of the twists and turns. And I know Lawrence has been such a big part of all of this journey too. So I would like to start out with the question of, clearly you know many people. Is it true that having a network is the success to our field of conservation? Is knowing people part of the secret?
Yes, well, thank you, Katie, and everybody, Brooke, and everyone. It's so great to be here. Yes, having a network is essential. It's essential. Be nice to everyone you meet, even the difficult people. Because actually, if you notice in my book, each, one person leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. And many of the people who I knew from when I was starting out, I still know now. And we're like family. Like yesterday I was at a wildlife conference and two of my former bosses well, one of them chaired the session I was in, and the other one, asked a question. And I mean, there were just everybody who I know. A lot of people who I know were all in the same session. So, and we've all like different generations. So it's really important to, a network is so important. One thing leads to the other and the other, because the conservation field is quite small and also difficult to navigate, because it's still not considered a basic thing like healthcare or education. And so you really need to make many connections in order to make things happen, I think.
And just out of curiosity to everybody kind of listening in as part of this book club, I'm curious how many of you all are in the conservation field? Are all of us that are tuned in today conservationists, or are we just passionate about reading? Are we passionate about Uganda? Feel free to chime in. I'm seeing a few nodding heads. Okay, seeing a raised hand. Erica. Did you have a question, Erica, or did you?
I was just going to share a little bit about my background. Sorry, my camera's off. I have a bandage wrapped around my head. But my background is I was an educator. I was an English teacher for 20 years, and I actually left the classroom last year because conservation and wildlife tourism are such a huge passion of mine. So I've actually been trying to segue into this field. But obviously reading, being an English teacher, is also a huge part of my identity. So as I was telling Brooke and Katie before we started, this is the perfect crossover of interests. And your story was so inspiring of all the twists and turns that it's taken.
Oh, thank you, Erica. I wanted the book to be for everybody, not just people in my field. So I'm glad that you've enjoyed reading it, because a lot of conservationists just write for ourselves. But I've always been inspired by Dr. Jane Goodall, who from a very young age, from the beginning of her career, was always writing about her experiences. And I think it changed so many people's minds. Everyone felt, I can be a conservationist, not only, like people who study a lot and and it's not only for certain kinds of people, it just got everybody interested in doing something for the planet. And I wanted to do that as well. And all the best as you make your transition, Erica.
Catherine commented in the chat that she is an elementary school educator who's passionate about conservation. And we also have Sarah, who in the chat shared that she's a high school science teacher with a focus on helping young people connect to nature. So clearly we have a theme of people that enjoy learning, and clearly we're all here for the best reasons. After I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. It's just being starstruck, Gladys, by you being here. After you were in college, you immediately had a job straight away. What are some words of advice or wisdom you might have for young people that maybe it's not that easy of finding a job right out the gate? What are some tips that you might offer them to pursue this field, to get into it?
I would say that what helped me quite a bit is because I experienced what I felt I wanted to do. So having worked, first of all, at Budongo Forest, where I had a lot of people helping me out, Professor Vernon Reynolds, they all looked after me. Because actually my mom said to them, look after my daughter. I don't even know if that made it to the book, but She was very concerned about me. I was 22 at the time. So everybody was very concerned that I ate and everything, you know. And then 2 years later, Dr. Liz McPhee she introduced me to everyone and went away after 2 days and came back after 1 month. So I had to basically look after myself and find my way. And I think it was great to have both experiences. And the second one really cemented everything. I felt, I can do this. I love this. I want to, you know, I became independent in the field. And then I felt I could actually do this. So my advice would be telling people to first volunteer or do some research or something in an area which you think you want to get involved in. And then through that, the doors will start opening. And I think that's what happened with me, because it's very difficult to just, first of all, it's very hard for people to hire you if you've not had that experience, because they always worry that you might run away. You know, there's no electricity, it's very remote. Sometimes, you know, like you have to look for water, or whatever it is. And a lot of people can't cope with it. It sounds glamorous, but when they get there, they're like, nah, I can't handle this. You know, there are ants in my room or all kinds of things. And they're like, no, I can't cope with all these insects, or, you know, it seems more glamorous than it is. And I think when someone has volunteered and really enjoyed it, and then they want to join your team, then those are the best staff we have had at Conservation Through Public Health. Those who volunteered, really enjoyed it, and they want to join the team because they already know what they're getting into.
Awesome, thank you. Those of you that are keeping quiet, it is time for you all to ask your questions. So go ahead and throw a raised hand in the air. I see Vanessa has her hand up. Go ahead, Vanessa.
Oh, thank you. Well, Gladys, I only want to say thank you so much for your book. It's inspiration me. I am from Bolivia, and I am coming for a country that has a lot of necessity too. I have some kind of privilege that can go out, study, you know, find some scholarship. And my area is more about analysis in ecology. But then I read your book, I think, you know, all my life I want to do conservation, directly work with people. And when I read your book, I am started writing, okay, first, left the community to talk, you know, all the tips that you are find in your book, I am started writing. And now I am writing like a plan for a conservation in Pampas cat. But
Wow.
for me, I am trying to do my networking now. It's funny because I am trying to do it now. And now you're talking about networking. And for me, for example, because I am nobody, right? So nobody knows me. Sometimes I don't receive any response for when I am trying to have my networking. Have you passed for this too? Have you passed that nobody answered, nobody, you know, when you send an email because they don't know you, perhaps you don't have any response? How you deal with that?
Yeah, Vanessa, that's a very good point, and it's great that you're determined to network. If somebody doesn't answer the email, like try again, and then try and look for somebody else, and then sometimes they come back to you. Because actually, sometimes some people just get so many emails, or it goes into junk mail, or it just depends. It depends. But it's all like, look, I'm really interested in what you're doing. I also want to do something similar. Is there something we can, is there somebody, actually, normally people sometimes feel that you're asking for help. But another way of asking for help is, do you know anybody else who could help? And that always makes it better, because sometimes someone says, I want to volunteer in your project, and they don't have a placement. Then they start thinking, I don't have a placement. So they may not get back to you. But if you say, can you recommend somebody else if you don't have a placement, then that's always easier for them as well. Yeah, so it's different ways of doing it, but don't give up. Don't give up, because eventually some people will answer, and those will be the people who are right for you.
I'm sorry for stop you, but I only want to say thank you, really, really thank you for your book. And another things that I want to say you is how, sorry that I am take two questions, sorry girls. How do you deal, for example, in the conservation of carnivores? In my area is more about man, right? And woman is a little more displaced. How do you deal when it's a woman when try to, lead a group of persons? Is if you go into a community that they have a closed mind and don't want to, cooperate you because you are a woman?
Yeah, well, thanks. I'm so glad you enjoyed the book. That's an interesting question, but it has happened. I know that with large carnivores, in Uganda yesterday, actually, they launched a large carnivore action plan on World Wildlife Day, and they asked me to be one of the panel discussants on conservation finance. My part was community-driven conservation, but there were 3 panels. And at the end of it, I realized I was the only female panelist. And I said it at the end. I'm like, thank you for inviting me. I talked about our One Health approach and all of that. And then I said, but it's not right that I'm the only female panelist here. Come on. It's like 2025 now. And they all agreed. And luckily, the permanent secretary for the ministry is a woman. So she also commented on it. And I was glad she had just arrived. So I said, apart from the permanent secretary who's going to speak, I was glad there were more women in the room. Normally, there are not many women. But why should it only be me? Speak. And they all got the point. And they actually said our panel was the best because it was a woman. I said, yay. So, but it's true. Sometimes people don't take you seriously. And some tribes in Uganda are very male dominated and they look down on women. But if you take yourself seriously and you're very focused and you bring a unique skill to the table, then sometimes you just have to listen. Because actually when we did the first health education workshop, my first experience with communities as a veterinarian was when everyone said I needed to talk to them about becoming more healthy and hygienic. And because it was me who was tasked to do the job, I was the team leader, naturally. But I went with people dealing with communities, the warden and the ranger, and then a sub-county health assistant. And so I'd get up there and say, this is how the gorillas got sick. And I was about to tell them, this is how we can prevent it. Because I had the brochures and I had the next flip chart was going to talk about how to do it, how to prevent it. And the ranger touched my arm and said, let them come up with a solution. And there were much better solutions than I was proposing. And during that time, very few women said, and in fact, no women talked. There were women in the audience, but they weren't talking. And then the ranger said to me, the women are whispering that we need to educate our daughters. Look at her, she's leading a team of men. And I never even thought about it, or I didn't realize that it would have that impact. And right now, a lot of women are able to stand up, give talks, and they're much better respected. So I think sometimes when they see role models, someone has done it, then they think I can also do it. So actually yesterday after the conference, some young women came up to me and said, you really inspire me. Can I have a photo with you? And they're like, you really inspire me. I want to do what you're doing. I want to get into conservation. Because a lot of them feel those barriers that they're not welcomed because it's a male-dominated field. But it's becoming less male-dominated as long as more and more women decide to do it. And I did mention to them that we started out in a gorilla conservation coffee, which I think you remember reading about it. We started off with 5 out of 75 women farmers. And now we have 230 out of 630 women farmers. And the women farmers are better than the men farmers because women pay more attention to detail. They're very proud about their coffee. And everybody was like, yeah, so people clapped. I'm like, yeah. So sometimes you can even think, oh yeah, a woman can do something like a man, but sometimes the women actually do it better than the men because there's certain qualities that women have that enable them to even perform better in some of the tasks. So I think we should just keep going. We should just keep plugging on.
Amazing.
In Bolivia, do you have, is it really macho society, male dominated in the rural areas, especially?
Yes, it is. And also when you go to the field, generally you go with the man, another man, then he don't talk with me. He sometimes talk with the person that is the man, not with me directly. So yes, it is. It's harder.
I mean, sometimes when I meet people like that, I just speak loudly. I'm confident. I speak louder than I should. I mean, I'm more forceful. And then they realize, okay, she's serious. because otherwise they just look at you like, it's just another woman, or they keep thinking they're supposed to be looking after you and protect you. They don't think that you have something that can move them forward, and you can lead them, you can be a leader. So, but female leadership is also very powerful.
Thank you for that, Gladys. And thank you, Vanessa, for your great questions. I see that Catherine's hand is up. So Catherine, if you want to go ahead and ask your question, you have the floor.
Sure. Hi, thank you, Gladys. Thank you so much for being here. Do you have any advice on how to bring conservation into schools?
Yeah, thanks, Catherine. I have spoken to a number of schools, actually, like all through my life, even when I just started out at the Wildlife Authority, and I've always been very inspired. Different age groups, from the very, very little ones who ask 10 million questions as you're talking, which is really exciting. And they'll tell you things like, oh yeah, we saw the gorilla on a mountain, even if they've never seen a gorilla, but they have a lot of imagination. To the high school students who are getting really shy and self-conscious, and they're worried that they may be saying something wrong, and then they're quite quiet, but afterwards they come up to you quietly and ask you lots of questions. So there's a whole range in between. But yeah, I think in Uganda, they were trying to influence the curriculum so that it's more conservation oriented. And yeah, so one way is influencing the curriculum. We've ever worked with North Carolina Zoo, and they had something called Uniters, Uganda and North Carolina International Teaching for the Environment. And I remember with Lawrence, we were part of the team that were in Kibale National Park, where the chimpanzees are, and many crater lakes, and beauty. It's a primate capital of Uganda, all kinds of primates. And what they did, the model was to teach the teachers who then teach the children. And that's another model. But yeah, there's all kinds of models. But at the moment, we have a STEAM program, science, technology, engineering, art, and math. And we're working with quite a number of schools, over 12 schools, around Bwindi, engaging maybe like 500 children through, and what we do is we get them to lead a conservation issue around STEAM, and they're the ones who lead it. And sometimes it's very relevant to their community. Like, some people, there's some recycling because there are many lodges around because of gorilla tourism, and a lot of rubbish is put everywhere. So they've made rubbish bins out of them, recycled the bottles. But another thing that we found is some of them asked for livestock, like poultry or pigs or goats. And we did find that as we interviewed them, our team interviewed them, the children of the poachers or the reform poachers or the gorilla guardians who had gorillas back, or the children of the village health and conservation teams, those whose parents are actively involved with wildlife or keeping the wildlife or preventing wildlife coming out, were much more knowledgeable. They were poorer than the other kids, but they were much more knowledgeable about the conservation issues. And so for them, it was a really practical component of what they were doing. But that was really interesting. And it was supported by National Geographic. And we worked with a lady called Laura Arndt, who founded Global Green STEM. So she's an educator. And actually, I became an explorer because of our science work, but they were happy that as a science explorer, I was able to win an education grant to do this, because they're encouraging more explorers to get more involved in the education side of things and work with educator explorers, actually, the teachers. And so it's been really interesting just seeing how and just the kids who are directly involved in these issues were much more knowledgeable. So that is what I found very interesting. But yeah, no, we've engaged schools. We also started we did a kids league for a bit. It's on and off, but we basically trick them to learn through sports. And they have to, the games that win, the teams that win have to also pass the quiz, not just win the football game or netball game. So there's just different ways of getting children involved. And it's been really interesting and exciting.
Thank you so much for sharing. Are any of the lessons that you kind of just talked about, the sports one that kind of tricks them into learning conservation, do you have any of those that are accessible for educators online?
Yeah, some of them we may have to write them up, but there is a teacher who came and spent some time with us. And she did actually develop some lessons. So I can put you in touch with her. She's called Emma.
That would be
And so yeah,
wonderful.
it was
Thank
great. It was great. She spent about a month or two with us, and she looked at all the different things we do, plus what some of our partners do, and she came up with various modules. So that was really interesting. And actually, with the kids league, our two sons love soccer, so that's how they made a lot of good friends up to now, through the kids league, you know, playing soccer. And actually, today is my son's birthday. He's 16 today, Tendo, our younger one. So, and he's playing soccer now, actually in America, in a high school in America. About to go to university in 2.5 years, and his older brother's in university. And his older brother actually wrote a book, Zookeeper for a Week, which I should have had here in the room. But yeah, he wrote Zookeeper for a Week, and that's about his experiences. He spent a week at the zoo, and he just wrote about it in a newspaper. And then his former teacher, the librarian at International School of Uganda, former librarian said, I see a book in here. And so over COVID, when children were spending a lot of time at home, he finally wrote it. And it won an award, a Moonbeam Children's Book Award in America. Just very exciting.
Thank you so much for sharing. I really appreciate that.
Writing books must be in your family. Lawrence, are you going to write a book? Amazing.
Lawrence always says it's his turn to write a book, but let's see.
Yes.
Yeah, I should write something actually.
Yeah.
But in fact, I'll go and get Indigo's book while you're answering a couple of questions, Lawrence. I'll get it from the
Sure
other room.
thing. Yeah, our son published a book, Zookeeper for a Week. He spent, he was, I think, 13 years old when he volunteered at the Uganda Wildlife Conservation Education Center in Entebbe. He published at 16, and now he's going to be 21 this year. Times have gone really quickly.
Wow. That's amazing. And does he still have an interest in animals? I mean, obviously, where you live, you have access to the animals with Gladys and going to see the gorillas. And being in America and being able to see animals there, do you think he still has an interest in that?
You may have to ask him, but he's trying to get his book widely distributed in the US.
This is his book.
Aw.
Zookeeper for a Week. And he was
Amazing.
able to, he was 13 when he did it, actually, as Lawrence said. And they allowed him to do it because he's been going since he was little. And I served on the board of the zoo, so they knew he was comfortable around animals. So that was okay. But he did really enjoy it, and he learned to work with older people. He became part of the team because he had to attend, you know, morning rounds and all of that. And it was a really wonderful experience. And it's inspired so many young children in Uganda. So many people, kids in Uganda want to do the similar experience, and they're more interested in animals because he did it. You know, he was closer in age to them, and yeah, they loved it. So I think it's had a huge impact, including the American ambassador, Ambassador Natalie Brown. She's just left last year, but she actually did Zookeeper for a day because of him. He invited us to her home for lunch. But yeah, no, it's been really. You asked whether he wants to get into animals. You know, like our boys love animals. Anyway, they're very comfortable with animals. But what Indigo said is that he's going to become a famous soccer player and donate to conservation through public health. So we have a ready-made donor. He's currently playing college soccer in New England College in New Hampshire. He's on the team and as a freshman, and he's getting lots of minutes, and he's happy. But yeah, no, they love animals. They're very comfortable with animals.
Great. I see that Ashton, your hand is up. So Ashton, you can go ahead and ask your question. You have the floor.
Thank you, Katie. It's wonderful to meet you virtually, Gladys. And I everybody here loved your book, and I loved reading about your journey. I'm a zookeeper, so I love the
Oh,
Zookeeper
wow.
book. And I brought it up to my team too. So we love the Zookeeper book. I'm looking forward to reading it and sharing it with my team and us here in Columbus Zoo in Ohio. But
great.
a question that I had for you was, we talked about networking and the power of your community and the role of it. And I was just curious, from your perspective, what was one of the more unexpected connections that you made throughout your journey?
Unexpected connections. I would say that within Uganda or just in general?
Either of them, absolutely.
Of course, one of them was really getting involved in public health. Because, in Uganda, people don't really care much about animals because there's so much human suffering. So some people used to say, if you want to become a veterinarian, you might as well become a human doctor. If you want to become an animal doctor. And I just hated going to hospitals, because the hospitals in Uganda at the time were very miserable. When you get sick, you go to the big hospital, and it's really depressing. And I just felt I really I didn't like seeing animals suffering, having grown up with lots of pets. So when we started the conservation through public health, and discovering that you have to improve the health of people to make sure that gorillas survive and thrive, and that in turn makes them care more about wildlife, then I really started connecting with the public health community. I really did. And I would say that it's quite a large part of my life now. I'm a couple of advisory groups for public health, including the World Health Organization Scientific Advisory Group for Origin of Novel Pathogens, of which there are four vets out of 27 people, and only 2 of us work with wildlife on that committee. But it's that whole public health part really became very much a part of what I'm doing. Maybe because I focused on great apes, the mountain gorillas, but in general, One Health has now become something that many people are understanding a lot better, especially after the pandemic. So I'd say that public health component, and realizing that conservation is not just about wildlife. You have to connect with other disciplines, and you have to go beyond conservation biology to conservation science. And those disciplines could even be economics, like people involved in conservation finance and carbon credits, or One Health, like public health, or agriculture. It's last week I was at a retreat, which was organized by somebody who worked with Ashoka, and they brought together some Ashoka fellows, of which I'm one of them, for having a unique approach to a new idea, which was merging conservation and public health, rural public health and wildlife management. And the main focus was sustainable nutrition. And he founded an organization called Nourish. So they have people all along the value chain, the agriculture people, the biodiversity, climate, and agroecologists is something I learned last week. So that's the new field. It's actually eco-agriculture. They always change the terminologies, but it's conservation-friendly agriculture. They're now calling it agroecology. And I'm like, okay, so gorilla conservation coffee fits in, plus the fast-growing seedlings we give to the local community so they don't poach fits in. You know what I mean? All of it is kind of linked. But yeah, it's just conservation. You have to work with other disciplines because you can't just do it alone. And the people who are affected by the wildlife face everything at once. They're normally in rural areas, but they could also be in urban. But they have so many issues going on. It could be health issues. It could be food, security. All kinds of things are going on in their lives. And you can only help to address those issues by working with other people in other disciplines. So that's been really good, learning to work with others. Can you hear me?
Katie, sweetheart, you have to unmute yourself.
Thank you. I was just saying thank you, Gladys, for that And thank you, Lawrence, for putting the Zookeeper for a Week book link into the chat, so those of you that are interested can check it out. I do see we have a couple more people that have just joined us. Welcome, Mark. Anyone else have another? Hi. Anyone else have another question that they'd like to ask Gladys? We can just see if there's any comments in the chats or hands
Mark.
raised.
I know, Mark. Hi.
Brooke, go ahead.
Nice to see you. Sorry I'm late.
Welcome, Mark. So
Thank
excited to have you here.
Yeah, sorry I was on my way back from Winter Park and didn't get home quite as early as I had hoped. But I was with you, Gladys, so it's nice that you're able to join this.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
It's been a while.
It's been a while. Yeah.
I hope all is well in Uganda.
It is. Although sadly I lost my aunt.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And she died at 95.
Oh.
She's just a year younger than my mom, who's about to be 96. And I took her to the gorillas when she was 70 or 69 and my mom was 70. And they loved it. It was the first time for them to visit the gorillas. Yeah, she really supported our work. And I remember actually at the time she did say, when are you going to write a book? It took a long time before it happened, 23 years. But yeah.
I'd love to ask a question and feel free to just shut me off if you've already covered this since I wasn't here. But I'm curious, Gladys, with the cutoff in USAID funding, is that impacting your work?
The cutoff in USAID funding, luckily, I would say that in the past couple of years, we haven't had USAID funding, but we've had USAID funding on and off for several years, like maybe 4 times. We got our first brand new vehicle from USAID. But most recently, we haven't had USAID funding. But however, yesterday, I got a phone call from one of the USAID offices. Interestingly enough, it was the Global Health Security Agenda Office. And they said, do you have any need for equipment, furniture? And I was like, are you really closing down your office? They said, yes, we are. So they're going to be donating to us because they're closing out their office. And they said, it's for real. A lot of USAID offices are closing. I think in Uganda, I would say that we're affected indirectly because the economy is going to go down. I know many conservation groups and public health groups, even agriculture groups, who have been affected by the USAID funding cut. So a lot of projects are going to be less active because there's less funding going to them. And in one way or another, it affects everybody. But at least in the local economy within Uganda, some people in the university have lost their jobs. I know it's much worse in America, much worse. But even here, people are feeling the impact already. So I think we're feeling the impact all over the world. USAID has actually done a lot, and we hope it will be reinstated again. I'm sure it will be in the next administration. Because somebody did say to me, someone had received lots of USAID funding over the years. He's American and now lives in Uganda. After many years, he's retired in Uganda. And he said, USAID cannot be closed by a president. It was created by Congress. So he said it's still there. It's just right now there's not money. And I know there's also many groups. There's USADF, the agriculture one. There's different US funded groups. And yeah, there's a lot of struggle. People are struggling, actually. It's quite hard, but let's see how and the other donor agencies, shockingly, are also reducing their funding. I thought they would step up their funding, but it's the opposite. This includes the Dutch, Belgium, Germany, British. Yesterday, we saw a post, and I don't know what's happening. Are they just worried or?
So the UK FCDO funding is being cut by half so they can put more into their military.
Wow.
Because Trump's demanding that Europe do more of its own defense funding.
That's sad. Actually, the World Wildlife Day conference yesterday, the EU ambassador to Uganda was talking about having to step up on defense funding. Yeah. So that means everybody's going to struggle. You know, sadly, you know, some people on HIV drugs, I don't know if they've stopped it or they're continuing it, but you know, some people on life-saving treatments.
Yeah.
And you feel really, really bad that they're removing that. But maybe they're going to make some exceptions. Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, thanks for that, Mark. Thanks for chiming in.
yeah,
It's a tough time.
sorry
But then
again.
now we may have to turn more to private philanthropists. You know, like
Right.
I know America has it's a country that has many private philanthropists. And I think that side of funding is going to increase everywhere for everyone, especially for people who are upset about what's going on. I think they'll try their best to help. We've had a few tourists, people who visited Uganda saying, how can we help? And have you been affected? So I think people are trying to help.
Mm. Let's hope.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, 93% of development aid comes from bilaterals from governments. So
Yes.
that means even Gates Foundation is something like 2 or 3% of giving. So we really have to step up if we're going to make up for what's going to be lost from governments.
That's really sad.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
But someone said to me, a tour operator said to me that they're having some booking cancellations. Do you think it's going to affect travel?
Mm. That's a really good question.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you're asking me or the group
I'm asking you. I'm asking you.
I could see a couple ways that it could impact things. I think the economy, you know, our inflation's going to be going up. People are feeling less secure. It's really hitting kind of the business world, the economy. I think that's going to be a challenge. And then I think there are also people who wonder how Americans are going to be perceived now in the rest of the world and might be a little bit nervous about traveling to certain places. My wife was just in Zambia and was well received, and if anything was received with pity more than any kind of antagonism. So, you know, hopefully the world will separate individuals from policies.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, travel is incredibly resilient. People will always travel. So, you know, I don't think it's going to be a big impact, but it could be totally wrong.
Well, great. Well, that's optimistic, and thanks for that.
Yeah, just chiming in, the past two companies, the one I currently work for and the one I previously worked for, they're both growing and exploding. So,
Oh, great.
yeah, one was an all African safari company, FIT company, and then this current one is Natural Habitat Adventures, How I Know Mark, and then Grace, and everything like that. So I don't see it slowing down at all. If anything, it might be the exact opposite. Yeah, once everything, you know, balances out a little bit further and everything. But yeah, I mean, that seems to be I guess like I think there might be like more bookings in the future. I think people are just kind of like, ooh, let's get through this year and see what happens this year. Like that seems to be what's happening.
Yes.
Don't want to go. They're just like, let's wait a little bit.
If I can add something to that, Brooke, is that you can't make it out to Uganda, you can always order our gorilla conservation coffee.
Hi, by the way, Lawrence, I didn't see that you were on there as well. Nice to see,
Yeah,
nice
he
to
is.
hear your voice.
Thanks, Mark. Happy New Year.
Yeah, and yeah, I definitely highly recommend the gorilla conservation coffee. It's delicious.
And I know, and Nature Habitat Safaris was the first group we had a coffee safari with, which was really nice.
Amazing.
Yeah, thank you, Mark, for organizing that at the time. Must have been several years now.
It has been a while. Yeah, 6 or 7 years must have been the first one. Yeah.
Yes.
Correct.
We now have many more farmers. Yeah, which is great.
I know that with the question of funding, obviously in conservation, that's always, we could say, a juggling act. Trying
Yes.
to receive grants and find partners and zoos that are willing to support long-term or the travel industry. And I know you mentioned you went through an MBA program to understand the business side of things. So how do you think that conservation programs can become more sustainable and long lasting? Does every conservation program need a for-profit arm like the coffee program that you helped found?
That's a great question, Katie. I think there has to be some level of sustainable financing. Otherwise, it's very difficult to only depend on grants. I mean, it's not, you need to have diverse sources of funding, and where, like there's a lot of opportunity for having sustainable financing. I know tourism has always been the main one. Places where there's no tourism, guerrilla conservation coffee can work, as long as you can get those markets. But I think all successful conservation projects have to have certain element of it. Even if it's things like you host students to come and study what you're doing and they pay money for it. Even that's some level of sustainability. But if everything is dependent on a grant, like, for example, Pat Wright, I don't know if you've heard of her, she's very famous, Dr. Pat Wright in Madagascar. She's worked with lemurs and done so much. And she said when she had some big funding pooled, I've forgotten which agency it was in America, suddenly she had no money and she had to really think. And that's when she set up the institution where conservationists come and learn, students come and learn, and that has sustained her activities a lot. So I think it's always, everybody has to just think, wherever you are, there is always an opportunity. And even the communities, a lot of them are very happy to sell their crafts, and they're not just looking for handouts. They actually want to be able to have more control of how they get money, and it's more dignified actually when they're able to sell their crafts or, like accommodation, food, or things like that. They want to be part of the tourism industry, and that's more sustainable than just giving grants, which come and go, and then they end, and they want some more, and then it's just a never-ending cycle. So I really think everyone needs to be thinking about sustainable financing in one way or another.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the group that maybe you haven't had a chance to ask it yet? Now's the time as we quickly approach the end of the hour.
I also wanted to mention that my mom wrote a book, and it's also on Amazon. My Life is Better Weaving. And yeah, she's one of the first female politicians in Uganda and encouraged many women to join politics. So it's also a very interesting book.
Wow, like I said, a family of writers, authors.
So Lawrence is next. No pressure.
I always say that actually my name is always appearing in every publication. So, but yeah, for sure I should write a book. My background is slightly different from everyone on this call. I once worked on a fishing boat in Alaska. I've been a Vista volunteer in Helena, Montana. I've worked in Billing and Missoula in the Conservation Corps building trails. This was right out of undergrad back in the mid 1990s. I'm a reformed telecom specialist, and now I head up our social enterprises, which include Guerrilla Conservation Camp and Guerrilla Conservation Coffee. So if I can do it, you all can do it.
And it would be good if you can travel to Uganda. I mean, once everything's settled down, as Brooke and Max say, it would be great to host you in Uganda to see all the work we're doing and visit the country. It's a very beautiful country.
Keep that in mind, Gladys. Trust me. Lots of things we're going to do in the future. So we might have to take you up on that offer. Awesome. Well, Katie, I'll pass it to you. I can't believe we've reached the top of the hour.
I know, it's amazing. Time flies when we're engaged in these amazing conversations with fantastic people. And each of you, by you being here, clearly you have a passion. And I hope that learning about One Health and learning about Dr. Gladys's journey has inspired you to want to do more. And I think that's what we all hope, is to follow our dreams. And Dr. Gladys, again, thank you for joining us tonight. Your father's dream was to develop Uganda, and you achieved this dream by your dedication to protecting the mountain gorillas, and of course, developing 2 amazing organizations. I'm going to put the link, if it hasn't already been put, into the chat for the Conservation Through Public Health website. So everybody, if you haven't followed it yet and checked it out, make sure you do so. Buy some conservation coffee, buy some of these other books. I'm just excited that book club has spurred on more books and more inspiration for us. So with that, I will let Brooke kind of announce our next book club book pick. But before we do, a quick round of applause, if you don't mind, for Gladys.
Thank you. And thank you so much for all the support. And I'm so glad that you've enjoyed the book. I'm really honored that you've enjoyed it. And guess what? My mom's writing a book about my dad. At 90, almost 96. She keeps going.
Wow.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, also too, Gladys, thank you again. Thank you for writing this amazing book. Thank you for being a part of Rewildology. Thank you for and giving us the best surprise. Quote of your book too. We have all of here. Everyone, we have your book. All of my tabs are still here.
We'll take a selfie. Everyone hold it up if you have it, and I'll take a screenshot.
Yes, you do that. That'd be great.
All right, everybody say cheese. Or gorillas. Got it. I'll do one more just in case. Sorry. One more, everyone. Great. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. What was that, Mark?
I was just saying, Webaleño, Gladys.
Gale, now we're Webale.
Webaleño.
Webaleño. And it's good. Keep being optimistic. We just have to be as conservationists. We don't have a choice.
No, we don't. Well, this was so much fun, everybody. Again, thank you, Gladys and Lawrence, for showing up. I will take just very few last minutes of your time. Our next book, drum roll please, is going to be The Wolverine Way by Dr. Douglas Chadwick. Oh my gosh, is he funny? So just get ready for a ton of adventure. Also, more tabs. I did interview him, and he has already agreed to come to our next book club. So, everybody. So just Gladys, I can't believe. Thank you for the amazing surprise. So everybody, your questions, of course, write them in Goodreads, but you will also have a chance to talk to Chad/Doug/Douglas/ he goes by a lot of names, but he is a very funny guy too. So I will send the information out if you want to grab this book. But if you will see it's at your library first, with Wolverine Way. But thank you, everybody. I can't believe it's already after an hour. That was amazing. Awesome. Well,
I am adding the Goodreads link once again. If you have not joined us on Goodreads, please go ahead and join us there. And we would all love for you to review Gladys's book on there. Hopefully, because you all loved it, you'll give it all the stars. But we would just love to continue discussions over there as well. If there was anything else you all wanted to talk about, we could chat there. But thanks again, Gladys. Thanks again, Brooke. And thank you all for being part of the Rewildology community.
Awesome.
Oh, thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you for having us.
Mhm. All right, everyone.
Bye from
And
Uganda.
Thank you.
I will conclude the book club. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much. Webaleño.